Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, and this is the NFL Preview Show. Championship week, guys. It's Super Bowl Sunday. It'll be this weekend. You've got the AFC NFC Pro Bowl tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes, but obviously this is Super Bowl weekend, biggest game of the year, the championship game. You've got the AFC, the NFC, you've got the Seattle Seahawks, and you've got the New England Patriots. We've talked about these teams all year long, and this will be the last preview show that we have before we head into August and we start talking about preseason and regular season for the 2026 season. However, this is the last game of the 2025 year. And along with me, Joey Clinkscales, former general manager, who's going to give a business perspective that you don't get anywhere else. And our NFL NCAA analyst, Brian LeBel, joining me, Harper LeBel. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Joey, let me start with you. Biggest week of the football season for a bunch of reasons. The media is in droves. The networks are all saying this is when we make our money. The players that are playing right now, this is the culmination, and the coaching staff. What am I missing right now? The fans, of course, everybody that's a part of that, Joey, this is really what it's all about. This is not an Academy Awards. I think this is bigger than that. It's bigger than some of the other businesses that have a celebration, because they even call their celebrations the Super Bowl of blank, fill it in. But for obvious reasons, Joey, this is a big time event, and this is the 60th anniversary of it. Your thoughts and perspective before we start.
Yes, this is the 60th iteration of the Super Bowl, and obviously there were. It was called the NFL Championship before that. So the big championship game for the National Football League has been going on for what, I don't know, 65, 68, 70 years before the, if not longer, before the Super Bowl became official. But yeah, this is obviously what every team. This is their goal at the end of the year, to be playing in a winner-take-all game like the Super Bowl. You know, every kid growing up, they want to play in the Super Bowl. They want to play in front of a stage of hundreds of millions of people in today's world, hundreds of million people from all over the world watching this game. This is the pinnacle of our sport. So everybody's excited to be able to play in the Super Bowl and participate. Families are excited. You know, kids are the players with the kids. They're excited to have an opportunity to watch family, dad, loved ones be a part of the Super Bowl.
You know, it's interesting you say that. Before I go to Brian, going back to the beginning when it was Kurt Gowdy, or you had Charlie Jones. I don't know if he did a Super Bowl or not, but he did a lot of big games. You had Bob Trumpy. You've had Howard Cosell, and Dandy Don Meredith and Frank Gifford. More recently, Pat Summerall and John Madden. That was the culmination when their network had it. Dick Enberg had done several Super Bowls. Mike Tirico now. You've got all Joe Buck, all the different folks. And in a way, isn't it kind of special or unique to have them call out your name? If they were to say, if the Raiders or let's say the Jets were in, and the general manager, Joey Clinkscales, did a fantastic job. There's something for family and friends and everything like, hey, they talked about you, where everyone's watching, and to be a part of that. Was that a unique feature that you, especially watching one of the first games when you were just a kid, you got to learn who these players were in a much different manner?
Right. You did then, and it's even a greater deal now, because the week leading up to it, like this week going into the Super Bowl, you have all the media attention. You have all the stories that come out from each individual player, their journey to this point, the things, the schools they went to, the teachers that helped mold some of these guys to be the best players they could be and the best humans they could be. So there are a lot of things that leading up to this week will culminate some of those things. And obviously, if the player makes a play on air, the commentators, the analysts will talk about those things that helped them get to this point where they're playing in the quite frankly, the biggest games of their life.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, born in 95. What was the first one that you remember? Was there a specific game that you were old enough to go, wow, this is really cool? I know there's one that you don't want to talk about where you had your hands and your head. And
that was, yeah, that one. That was probably Raiders Bucks. I think was the first one that I was like, okay, like I understand what's going on. I understand what's happening. And I think that was really the first one that I could think back that I remember, because I don't remember Titans, Rams very much. I know, I could go back and watch the Ravens and the Giants, but I think Bucks and Raiders was really the first one that I actually remembered. Like, oh, I remember that play. I remember he did this. I remember he did that. I remember those guys. I remember them coming out of the tunnel. I remember where it was played, stuff like that. But yeah, I think that was the first one.
Really? All right, Joey, how about you? How far back do you go?
I think the first one, I don't know, the first one I really paid attention to might have been, it would have had to be a Cowboy game. Maybe it seemed like the Dolphins and maybe the Cowboys, or back
Six?
in, yeah, you know,
5. No,
five.
6. That would have been 6. 6.
Yeah, one of those games
Yeah.
will be the first ones I really remember.
Yeah. Mine was 5. I remember Jim O'Brien kicking the field goal,
Mhm.
and the ball was like on the 3-yard line. He kicked it from the 9, if I'm not mistaken, and the uprights were still on the goal line. It
Right,
wasn't
that's
10 yard
right.
back. It was the shortest kick you could ever possibly imagine, and he didn't have his chin strap buckled. The next one I remember, Greasy running all over the place for a sack, and the Cowboys lose that one. No, they didn't. They won that one, and then they end up the Dolphins lose 6, and then they win 7 and 8. So interesting way of looking at how you get in and the longevity. With the Steelers, for example, they never lost, at least not the first 4 that they won, but there were other teams that they lost before they win. And very interesting how that can be a portion of the strategy that you have going in for the next year. But anyway, so this game will take place on Sunday for obvious reasons. We'll talk about that a little bit. But tonight, over on the left-hand side of your screen, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern, you've got the AFC-NFC Pro Bowl game. Joey, this has taken on a much different significance. It used to be a game where you'd have all the players. It was a very fun atmosphere. It was almost an all-star game, if you will. And you'd see guys running around in big plays here and there, not much tackling. It was almost like an NBA game. Now they don't even want to do it. It's basically flag football. Tell me the difference for you from a general manager and an ownership perspective, how I don't want any of my guys getting hurt in this, so I'm okay with flag football, versus how the fan would feel about they're not even playing football. Why should I watch?
Well, I think that's where the rubber meets the road here, because it did become like a too much of a touch football game and not a competitive football game. And from the business aspect of it, I'm sure the sponsors were like, you know, we're paying for and we're buying these $1 million ads for a football game, not a touch football game. So
Right.
I'm sure that's where things got a little dicey. So finally, since they weren't really playing until the fourth quarter anyway, they decided to make this a skills game and a flag football game. Just like what the NBA is going through with, you know, the All-Star game. You know, they have tinkered with a lot of different formats, and I think the format they have this year for the NBA All-Star game might be the best one they've had in a while, with the European team versus the American team. I think that'll breed some competition. But the competitive level of the Pro Bowl games had it lost a little bit of its luster every year, to the point where the league said, you know what? And again, I'm sure the league had help getting to that decision by the sponsors, saying we're not going to pay for what we see on the field from a sponsorship standpoint.
Yeah, that's a real interesting perspective now. You're paying a lot of money. Now, they've even moved the game. It's tonight, right, on Tuesday evening instead of the usual Sunday game. But I used to like watching it, you know, talking about reflecting. And Brian, you can kind of chime in on this. It used to be AFC was red and white, NFC was blue and white, but I loved watching the different color helmets and trying to guess who the player was, especially a lineman that I wouldn't see much. Gosh, who's that guy wearing the Packers helmet? I can't remember who that is. And trying to figure out some of those things, knowing who the quarterback is, and obviously the star players. The stars are still there, don't get me wrong, but the format of the game has completely changed. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Tell me your opinion.
And more importantly, before you go, Brian, the game always used to be in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the most important part of going to the Pro Bowl, is you were going on a free vacation with your family for a week in Hawaii. So now that's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead. I know.
I was going to say Bruce Smith went every year, and when I was playing, the fun part for a backup defensive end on the AFC squad was once Bruce got out there, he was going to pull a hamstring or say my toe is bad, and he would stay there, but he couldn't play. So the next guy in line for the Pro Bowl would always get he'd be there a day late. He would travel on Monday to get there Tuesday, because when the team gets there on Sunday, by Monday morning, Bruce go, by the way, my knee's bothering me, and he wouldn't play. So everyone always knew on the AFC side, as a defensive end, if you were second or third in the voting behind Bruce, there was a good chance that you would end up in Hawaii if you still weren't playing.
I think some of the prestige of it is gone, right? Because it used to be, you're seeing Manning and Brady and Breeze and Roethlisberger and a lot of the stars, right? That's what it was. But now, so you got so many guys turning it down, and they're kind of going down the totem pole a little bit, where, the whole point, I don't really want to go to Orlando. I think a lot of people have that mindset. If it was in Hawaii, I think a lot of these guys would be saying yes, like you mentioned. But, I just think from a fan's perspective, especially if you're on a bad team, and you're a fan of a bad team, there's only going to be one or two guys that you have out there, right? Realistically. So I think kind of the excitement to say, hey, that's one of our guys, right? Or, hey, that's awesome that we have some representation by, wearing the individual helmets and having the jerseys and whatever it was. But I think there was a very, unique aspect to it. I think from different all-star games, right? Because the NBA, you're going to have a host city with the team that actually plays, right? It's the same thing with baseball. It's the same thing with hockey. It's just, football was different in the sense that we're going to go out to Hawaii. It's once a year. It's a whole event. It's a big deal. And, adding Pro Bowler to your resume meant a lot more a few years ago than it kind of does now. Now more so if you're, an elite guy, you're trying to, notch that all pro bid. But, it used to mean a little bit more. I think, obviously the game doesn't matter as much because, it is just an exhibition and it always has been. But I just think as it's gone on, like, you guys said, we don't want guys getting hurt. We don't want anything bad happening. And, it's more so just a celebration, everybody that's there. And, let's try to have a good time at the end of it.
Well, just a little bit of history, Harper, before you go. Back when the Super Bowl was in its infancy and the Pro Bowl was in its infancy, the Pro Bowl players used to play the college all-stars. So they weren't playing against each other. They were playing the all-stars from the college game who were coming into the pros, who were about to be drafted. They were playing the Pro Bowlers. So that made for interesting football as well. And I think that was something that, for a while, I don't know how competitive it was because obviously I wasn't old enough to pay attention to it. But from a competitive standpoint, there were some interesting games from my understanding.
Yeah, there was a couple games in the early 70s where the college kids, I think 72 or 3 when Walter Payton played, just before he came out, they nearly beat it would have been the Dolphins that year. But that's a different game also. There's also the college all-star game that took place in August with the Super Bowl team from the next year coming in. So all kinds of different ways of looking at how they market the game. And speaking of marketing, let's take a little bit of a approach of how the marketing for Roger Goodell and the entire staff of the National Football League, the State of the Game address is always a big one. And this year, I think the biggest thing about it, Joey, is there's talk. Bob Kraft has been recorded earlier in the season by Scott Zolak in the show that he does up in New England. Hey, we can't wait to get this 18th game going. And this is go, go, go. We want to do this. And the Players Association, Mr. White, the representative, the interim head of the NFLPA right now, has said, we're not ready yet. There's no way. The players are unanimous in that this is not the right time to be discussing that. I'm not sure if that's a money issue or if that's a tabling on purpose, but your thoughts and just quick overview of what you would think of an 18th game to kind of make it an even number again, and what the thought process behind that from an ownership perspective as well as the player side.
Well, if we're going to be transparent here, it's always a money thing. Sure. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. The National Football League, first and foremost, is a business. It's a game for the fans. It's a business for the owners. Okay, so it's always going to be a money thing. Okay, but it's also a collectively bargained agreement. So that's where the Players Association comes from something being collectively bargained, and the intricacies that goes into it, like. Probably having the 18th game is going to happen. The owners want it from a not only a money standpoint, because that's another game that they get money in their pocket that they get to split due to the revenue sharing, but it's also from a sponsorship standpoint. I mean, they're making more, again, more money more money, and they're about making dollars.
Yeah.
But also, okay, what will go along with that is probably 2 bye weeks instead of 1 bye week in an 18 game schedule. So now you're looking at 18. You're looking at an 18 game schedule in a 20-week season. Okay, so and again, the NFL, they want the NFL conscious on the fans' mind from basically from Labor Day through Easter, Valentine's Day, Easter. I mean, if they could have the National Football League on the conscience of America for that extended amount of time, then guess what? I mean, it almost kills the other sports from the standpoint of once the NFL start playing on Christmas, it start killing with the NBA. The NBA thought they could compete for a while, but it was obvious that the NBA started getting killed by the rating from the NBA. I mean, from the NFL, because the NFL is truly America's sport. And so again, it's inevitable that we're gonna have an 18 game season, and it may not be this year, but it will be collectively bargained. And within the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, we will have an 18 game season. And probably they'll have 2 bye weeks instead of 1 bye week. But then on the flip side of that, you can't preach player safety when you're adding more games, despite the money that you're going to make. You can't say that we're doing this to be for player safety. So now you're going to have to, again, the NFL's version of backing up what they say with player safety is backing it up with money. Okay, they feel like if we can offer the players this much more in salary, this much more in incentive, this much more toward a pension or whatever, then the noise about the player's safety will kind of die down.
It will disappear.
Because as in business and in life, if you throw enough money at the problem, then the problem becomes less of a problem.
Yeah. Remind me again, the first collective bargaining, was it 53-47 for the owners? And then now it's 50-50. But that split is seriously, going to be wanted every time they get together. They're going to want to renegotiate that.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. That's a split. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Brian, your perspective. You heard Joey's right there, and obviously it's more money, and more money. What else is involved with this?
Well, I think you got to figure out when you're going to sneak that extra game in there, right? Are we going to start the season a week earlier? Or are we going to, I think they've mentioned, cutting the preseason back. We've already done that, right? We're already at 2 games. So, it's just kind of hammering out all the details. Most of the starters aren't even playing in the preseason anymore anyways, right? So it's going to be a lot harder to kind of figure out the bottom of the barrel of your roster, right? The undrafted free agents, the rookies coming in, it might hurt them a little bit, because they are going to have less exposure if you've got more preseason games. So it's going to have to be more so showing out in camp. Go ahead, Joey. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So one of the things they would do is right now, I think it's 3 preseason games. They will cut it back to 2, or maybe even I would doubt it would go to 1. It's probably going to be a 2. But what they do now, especially from an evaluation standpoint, is they have joint practices. So the Titans will play Atlanta. Okay, so the starters will play a little, the backup guys will play inevitably almost like a real football game. So they're getting the same competition to be evaluated. They're just doing it in a different way. It's just not on national TV. And they're able to probably make even more effective, a better feel for cuts when they get to the point where they cut the roster from 85 players down to 53 players. And that used to be a process that took 3 or 4 weeks. Now it's a 2-week process. On this date, we'll cut down to 60 or 65, and on 2 weeks later, we're going to be at 53, or we'll be at 48 or 49 or whatever, and then we'll start adding practice squad guys. But a week like the week of the first game. So however they do it, I think that's how it will happen. The games may start at the same time. They'll play less they may bring them into training camp a week earlier, but they'll play less preseason games, which is the players will like that anyway because they aren't really getting paid for preseason games anyway.
Yeah.
Once the regular season starts is when they make their money. So the real players will enjoy that. Now, from an evaluation standpoint, that's where you'll find out. We're going to send our team here to practice against another team, and we'll spend 2 days there, and we'll practice against that team leading up to another preseason game. So a lot of teams will go, will leave on a Monday or Tuesday, practice versus a team, play them in preseason on Saturday, and then fly out to another team and do the same thing for the next week before they make it back home. So that even happens in preseason now.
Now, let me ask you this, though. Is there anything that comes with like having a game day, right? We're going to do our game day prep, having to run out of the tunnel, right, and play in front of a large crowd, in not a primetime slot, right? But it's a little bit different. Does that change anything? I mean, are you looking for something different in these guys versus because the practices are good? I think, honestly, they're a little more chippy. They're more physical than the preseason games that we have now. But is there just something different where a guy has to run out of the tunnel wearing your team's uniform for the first time and just kind of seeing if maybe there's a different reaction or maybe they play a little bit differently once you get, in an actual game setting versus just the joint practices?
Well, I think they still have two opportunities to do that. It's not like they're cutting it out completely. They'll still have two opportunities to do that. However, I think the what you want to see is the competitive fire, the competitive juices. And be quite honest, at least when I was a player, a lot of times after the first 2 or 3 plays, you really don't realize you're so focused, you don't realize the fans are in the stands anyway, whether they're cheering or not. I mean, because you're focused on the job at hand. You can't hear 80,000 people cheering. You really can't because your focus is laser like. So once you get going, and I think competing and hitting somebody that's not your teammate will also bring those competitive juices. So if let's imagine this. Imagine, and they wouldn't do this, but imagine Chicago and Green Bay having a preseason camp together for a week.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Very chippy. Yeah,
very chippy.
Yeah, probably a lot of guys.
Right, that would never happen. You would never do it against a team in your division. But we would always go to in Pittsburgh. We would always play Washington. We'd always go to Washington or Washington come here, and we go a week early, so we practice against those guys. So a lot of times the things you see in the game, in the preseason game, are very similar to what you see in practice anyway. Yeah. So, but I think those competitive juices are what we're talking about, and those things, whether the TV camera's on or not, once you're playing against somebody in a opposite jersey, those things come out.
Yeah. The Saints used to go up to Wisconsin, and they would either take on the Bears or the Packers. Kansas City would do the same thing, Joey. Years ago, when I was a junior in college, one of my teammates was in camp with the Cowboys, and he was the last guy cut. And he came back, and I saw him, and I asked him what it was like. He goes, "Doggone it, Harper, I was in training camp doing 2 days for 7 weeks, and then I got let go because someone got hurt, and they brought in another guy from another team that was a starter, and then I was given nothing, and they showed me the door." I feel bad for him, but that's the way it goes sometimes. It just does. But 7 weeks of training camp, they can always move it up in terms of have camp start in late July, play 2 preseason games, have the season open the last week of August. You get that 18th game in August instead of waiting till Labor Day. There's a way to market it so it doesn't. So we're not playing until Groundhog Day or further. Like this year, we're playing past Groundhog Day. But interesting, the perspective and what's going to take shape. Obviously, the state of the game announcement will be made by Roger Goodell tomorrow. He'll be fielding a couple of those questions, and I'm sure there'll be the owners would like it and the players do not right now, and my job is to help mend the fences there and see if we can't come to a place. But it won't be this year. It won't be next, at least not that I'm aware of, unless somebody – you got to vote on it first, and that's not going to take place until – the following 2027 season. So interesting things going to be taking place, but I agree with you, Joey, and you as well, Brian. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if, and how they split the money. If they divide the baby up where everybody's happy, then it's going to happen. All right, guys, let's do ourselves a favor. It's been 25 minutes. We haven't talked about the game yet. Let's do that. You've got two of the best defenses in the league right now, two of the better offenses. You've got two of the better coaches and the coaching staffs. Joey, do me a favor. Tell me what last week was like for each of the teams in terms of their preparation, how they practiced, how they game planned, how they took care of the injury situation, what their thought process was in terms of here's what you're going to do and here's what you're going to do. And all the coaches are aware of what their job and responsibility is, so nothing gets out of hand. And then how that compares a little bit with what this week is going to be like when you've got everybody and all the media wanting a piece of everybody. Practices will be semi-private, but you're playing in another facility and there's a comfort level that guys aren't always used to. What was that like in terms of the preparation that you would be making as a general manager?
Well, I think the preparation going into the Super Bowl is, the first week that you're off, the first week that you aren't playing, you're trying to get not only game plans together, you're trying to get people healthy. Everybody's this time of year has nicks. Nobody's playing without having some kind of injury. So you have that going on. So you're getting people well. You're practicing at a good pace. Not a lot of contact, but just at a good pace where everybody's breaking a sweat. You're going over your assignments thoroughly. You're doing a lot of extra work. You're doing a lot of extra rehab. You're doing extra lifting. But most importantly, you're trying to get healthy, and the bulk of your real work will get done this week, okay? Knowing that really you have a short week coming up the following week, which is this week. That was last week. Now this week, which we're going into, which we're in the game week, you have the media obligations. So you plan that into your schedule because those things are mandatory. You have different events that you might have to go to early in the week, but later in the week, you don't have anything other than, some media obligations. So you will get good work going into it, but you have to realize that, this is the last time as a team that you're going to be together. Okay. Yeah. So everybody is two guys going in the arena. One guy's coming out of the arena with a championship. And, there's automatic motivation knowing that everything that you have wanted since training camp started, you have the opportunity to accomplish that goal, to accomplish that feat in Super Bowl 60. But only one team will be able to do that. Okay, so the guys that are playing hurt, they're going to do whatever they need to do to get out there and play, whatever it takes. You're going to hopefully brush up on all your assignments. You're going to know your opponent like the back of your hand, and you're going to give your all. I would be surprised if you saw any loafs or anybody not going 100% in this game. Now, you'll watch other games, you'll see guys don't look like they're running, don't think they can make a tackle. You'll see everybody going 100 miles an hour this game. And to the point where you'll have to calm people down early in the game because they'll be overexcited, over-animated.
Yeah, and after every play, there will be some sort of celebration.
Oh, of course. This is the biggest audience they'll have. There will always be some kind of celebration at the end of a play.
Every play will have a celebration where there'd be every other play in most regular games. Brian, in terms of the hype and the circumstance and everything that's associated with Media Day, which was earlier today, they've got to get the business, right? And that's what I think last week was all for. There'll be some fine tuning, as Joey said, in terms of the practices, just make sure you're sharp, a lot of mental reps as well. But, what are some of the things that the players, there's going to be a lot of dead time too. There's going to be some things that, gosh, I can't wait for this game. And there's almost like this cabin fever, where you got additional hours and you're not at home and you're not comfortable. You're not sleeping in your bed. And the night before the game, you switch hotels. It's almost like a regular, what would you call it? Just a regular road trip that you would take, where the hotel that you've been housed in for the previous 5, 6, 7 days is now gone. You get to keep it, right? You got to go back to it and get your gear, but you spend that night. Your family stays where they were and all of the guests that you have, but you move on. A lot of things for a guy that's never been there before.
Well, I think there's a lot of, uncomfortable factors of it, but I think the adrenaline and I think just the excitement kind of makes up for it, right? I think the downtime, whatever for us, right? Because the fans, it's like, hey, we haven't had a real football game in 2 weeks. But for these guys, it's flying by, right? Because it's all this prep. You're like Joey said, you're fine tuning everything, right? They're going over no stone unturned. We're going to go over every little detail. It's almost like an extra bye week, right? So you can maybe install another trick play or two, or maybe, like what the Saints did in the Super Bowl when they had that onside kick that, a lot of people, it's not a typical thing, but I'm sure they practiced it a little bit extra and it worked out and ended up, flipping the tie in the game. Just, the different elements and how I think maybe certain coaches kind of go about their business on a bye week and having that extra time. I think it's a little bit different because obviously you have media day, right? And everyone's going to want to talk to these guys. Everyone's going to want to talk to Drake May and Sam Darnold and kind of see what's going on. So just having, I think, the entire stage to yourself is a little bit different. It's a step up from conference championship week, which, obviously was a couple weeks ago, but it's just these two left. And I think, in that regard, I think the Patriots probably going to handle a little bit better, right? Because it's, none of the players really have been here before, but most of the coaching staff and most of the front office people and obviously ownership, they've been here plenty of times. They understand how it works, the nuances and how to maybe get the best out of your players and be ready to go once Super Bowl Sunday, hits. But, I think a lot of these guys, it's all, you can do anything you want, but I think there was an old Mike Tyson quote where everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? And I think once they run out of the tunnel and guys start hitting and the game actually starts, and the lights are bright. And like Joey said, the crowd noise will be there for a couple plays, but once you get going and guys flying around 100 miles an hour, it's just, they're going to be playing football just like they have all season. And both of these teams are very, very good. That's why they're here. They deserve to be. They're the two best teams in their respective conferences. And I think it's going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't think there's too much, that's going to play into it once the game actually starts and these guys start going head to head and the last game of the year, and all eyes are on them.
Joey, we're going to talk about the coaches in just a second. Brian just brought them up, and I'm reminded of in 1981, the Super Bowl for the 80 season, when the Raiders played the Philadelphia Eagles. That was the tie, the yellow ribbon around the old oak tree one, where we had the hostages and everything that was obviously of significance and importance. I'm not belittling that, but the game was in New Orleans at the Superdome. The Philadelphia Eagles go into town, and Dick Vermeil has a clamp down. It's almost worse than training camp. Guys couldn't go out. They couldn't do anything. And that was his philosophy and his mandate for the team. We're going to focus. We're going to win this game, and we're going to change Philadelphia forever by doing it that way. We're going to take this game seriously. The Oakland Raiders, on the other hand, as you well know, you've been with that organization, Madden had a deal where he said, you guys can go out. The last night will be Tuesday. And then Wednesday, you come to work and you're ready to go. And Wednesday morning shows up, the meeting, and the only guy missing is John Matuzak, the biggest guy on the team, defensive tackle. And Tuz is like 6'6". He's 305 pounds. Back then, he was an enormous human being. And he walks in 3 minutes late. And the whole meeting stops, and they turn around, and the players and the coaches are all looking. And John Madden says to Tuz, he goes, I told everybody to be here on time and that we're going to take this seriously. And I've got you coming in this meeting late. What on earth could have kept you from getting here on time? And he looks behind him, and Tuzak says, Coach, I know you didn't want anybody else out last night, so I was scouring the streets, making sure that not a single Raiders player was out, and they were all here, and everybody is accounted for. The team roared in laughter. The coaches laughed. Even Madden couldn't help, and he says, just sit down. And they ended up killing the Philadelphia Eagles because they got to be free and have some fun together and enjoy the circumstance of the event that they were in, where the Eagles weren't allowed to. And the result was, everyone says afterwards, Vermeil loosened up. The next time we went to the Super Bowl, he never kept the reins on that tight. Joey, do you know any stories like that? At least,
I got a ton of stories, but I'll say this: great talent allows for great tolerance. Okay, had that been the
long snapper,
48th man on the roster, his tail would have been sent home. So great with great talent, you get a chance to change your mind on some things.
Tuzak on defense and maybe Stabler would be the only guy on offense to come up with the same line like that would get the same result.
Well, it's so funny because Coach Belichick used to tell this story about Coach Parcells and Lawrence Taylor, and the story went that and Lawrence was always a guy that he was a habitual line stepper. That's how I'll put it. He was a habitual line stepper. Yeah. So he was late to a meeting, and so
Belichick wanted to find him, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Belichick knew where his bread was buttered with Lawrence Taylor too. But Belichick went into Coach Parcells after the meeting and said, "Well, Coach, Lawrence was late to the meeting," and Coach Parcells looked at him and said, "Then why'd you start a meeting? Why'd you start a meeting?" So with great talent, there's great tolerance.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Brian, your thoughts here on this?
No, I was going to tell that exact Belichick story when you brought it up, the tolerance aspect of it. Because I think when they did the football life that they do on NFL Network, that was when they were talking about Lawrence Taylor. I think that's what Belichick, the first thing he brought up. But, I think it's a little different with a lot of these teams because, like, you don't have a ton of household names, right? Like, you don't have a ton of guys that are, necessarily like, kind of tension-grabbing names. I think you got, like, some redemption. I think Sam Darnold being where he is now versus where he was a couple years ago is a big deal. But I think, all in all, I think more than likely a lot of these guys kind of understand how the way the game works and the business aspect of it. Like, we're going to kind of allude to it later. Like, a lot of these coordinators and a lot of these assistants, a lot of the guys that are, here now. And Joe, you mentioned earlier, this is your last time with these guys. A lot of the coaches are changing, offices, and they're going to change where they're at next year too. So a lot of that is sort of, hey, I think back to the Dan Campbell line a couple years ago with the Lions when they lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, where this might have been our only shot, right? And if maybe less if you're New England because they've been here so many times, but if you're Seattle, Kubiak is rumored to be out the door, and you're going to have a lot of moving parts next season. But this might be your only shot, so I think a lot of guys kind of understand that, and the focusing aspect of I don't think there's going to be many guys late to meetings tomorrow morning for either of these locker rooms.
One of the others, real quick stories, if you don't mind me telling me, in step with the Super Bowl, we'll take Parcells and we'll take Belichick. When the New York Giants go in '86, the rumor was that Parcells was really upset at Belichick's defense and that he was thinking that the Broncos were just going to destroy them because Phil Simms was tearing them up. And then when Phil would take reps with the offense, there was one 7-on-7 and then a team drill that he had where he went 23 for 25 in practice. And Parcells is hitting Belichick in the shoulder. Go, Bill, you better get your defense to play a little bit better. Phil is tearing him up. And the following night, this is the eve of the Super Bowl. So Saturday night, Phil has his room. And right next to him is Bart Oates. And Bart could hear something. And he couldn't make out what it was, but he puts his ear to the wall. He can't hear. It's coming from Phil's room. And there's security, and you're not allowed to do anything. But Bart takes a chance, and he puts the lock in front of his door so he can get back into his room. And he knocks on Phil's door. And Phil opens it up just in cracks. And he goes, "Hey, Bart, what are you doing?" He goes, "What's going on in there? You got a girl in here? What are you doing?" And he goes, "Get in here." And he closes the door behind him. And Phil says, Am I too loud? He goes, "Yes, of course you're too loud. What are you saying? Who are you talking to? Who's in the room?" He goes, "Nobody's in the room, but I'm practicing my lines. Listen to me. Am I doing it right?" He goes, "I'm going to Disneyland. I'm going to Disneyland." He would practice his line. He knew that he was so hot in practice that week. He had never been like that before. And so he knew at the end of the game with that defense that you had, he had no shot of losing the game. So he practiced his line. Jim Bart just looks at him and just turns, or Bart Oates, excuse me, that was his center. And he goes back in his room and he shuts the door. He goes, "Shut up, Phil, stop it, and go to bed." And Phil Simms had a fantastic Super Bowl. The McConkey deflection and passes to Bavaro and everyone around the field, and he tore it up. And what's it like, Joey, from your perspective, from the legendary status that both of these teams have players that have never been here? There's a couple that have played before, but this is new for Vrabel. It's new in that it's a different Patriots team, and no one on the Seahawks has any prior Super Bowl experience to bring with them. especially the guys that are starting. This is a new experience for both sides. You don't have Kansas City. You don't have Philadelphia. You don't have Baltimore or some of the other perennials in there. What's it like for these two teams being originals and being able to fit in and play at the highest level from the get-go to where it's smooth, it operates, and you have a chance to win the ball game?
Well, I think the most mature team will at least get on track sooner, and I think the most mature team is the Seahawks. They have more veteran players that have been there, and I think they'll be more comfortable from the standpoint of, yes, it's the Super Bowl. Everybody's going to have a little bit of nerves, but they're going into an environment, a stadium that they play in, that they know. They probably went to the same practice facility that when they fly in town on Friday for a Sunday game that they go to and get a walkthrough. I don't know whether they were at the San Jose facility or they were at Stanford, but either one, it's probably, their routine is just like when they're coming in town to play the 49ers. So I would think that from a comfort level standpoint that Seattle would be able to adjust a little quicker because the surroundings and the feel of the arena, of the a sense of normalcy that they've already gone through is a little bit better than a younger Patriots team that's coming in. I'm not worried about the travel all the way from across the country because they've been there a week. So you get adjusted to that. That's not an issue. But I just think the familiarity with the location and a more veteran team will play a factor for the Seattle Seahawks early in the game for sure.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with Joey, Brian, but in terms of who's been in more Super Bowls as a coach, Mike Vrabel, hands down, has some experience and will probably carry over some things that will relax the guys and say, look, and this is, I know as a player, and now I know as a coach what's involved here. How will that ease the Patriots versus what McDonald is doing? This will be new for him. I'm sure he's called a few of his friends, and especially ones that have rings on their fingers from a Super Bowl championship, to try to say, what's the best way for me to approach this with my team that might be slightly different than what we've done in the past, that will get them to be loose and get them to be where they're playing at their best on Sunday evening?
Well, I think the preparation is different. The stage is different. But I think for both of these guys, they're just going to be frank. Hey, we're going to do the same thing we've done all season, right? We're not going to tweak anything. We're not going to change anything crazy. We're going to just – what we've done has gotten us here, right? Both of these teams won 14 games. These are two 14-3 football teams. They dominated the regular season. I think Seattle probably dominated the playoffs a little bit more, but man, the Patriots defense, especially, I think has played really, really well since the end of the regular season. And I think they're just going to say, we're going to watch tape on them. We're going to watch tape on us. And we're going to do what we've done all year. Because both locker rooms right now think they're the better team, right? Both locker rooms at this point, both coaches have instilled, we're better. We're going to win this game, right? Obviously someone has to lose, but the idea is what we've done is working. It's gotten us this far. There's nothing crazy. There's no injuries. There's nothing, off the field really going on that we have to worry about. We're going to take care of our business. We're going to do our normal prep. And I wouldn't, other than the media stuff and having to travel a little bit earlier, switching up hotels, all that different stuff, there's more nuance around the game. But I mean, they're not going to change up a whole lot. They're going to, go about their business. They're going to say, hey, what we're doing has been working regardless of, if you're the Patriots and you've won however many. I think they have 6 Super Bowls. And then, Seattle, because they've been here recently, right? There's some people in the upper office. I mean, these two teams played against each other 11 years ago, right? In the Super Bowl. So, there's people from both sides who have dealt with it more so in ownership and the the executive suites. But we're not going to change up a whole heck of a lot. We're going to do what we've done because it's worked, and we believe in this team, and then we can go out and win.
Joey, any Seahawk fan would say, why would Brian bring that up again? Why would he talk about that game, the Russell Wilson, the interception at the goal line, and what was it, Malcolm Butler, right? Was that the name of the guy who will forever be in the folklore of, Brady on the sideline going, I can't believe this. And then, what? We got the ball back. Give the ball to Marshawn. Give the ball to Beast Mode. Pete Carroll, everything that was associated with that. Coach's perspective from where you sit, obviously, I know you gave the advantage to Seattle in terms of Super Bowl preparedness from the player standpoint. I would also say that, we've got to agree that Vrabel's his Super Bowl experience speaks volumes in terms of what he's going to bring to the Patriots.
Yeah, well, fortunately for both teams, there's no scar tissue left from anybody that's going to line up on the field. No, what we're talking about are things the fans will talk about. We're talking about things the media will probably bring up, but there's no scar tissue from anybody that's going to suit up and play on Sunday. So everybody's going in. It's everybody's first time playing. They're going in there, and it's new. So history won't matter. The fact that Pete Carroll had a brain fart and didn't give the ball to Marshawn and decided he was the smartest guy on the field that day, and it backfired. Those things won't matter once they line up. The physicality of the game will matter. The team that makes the most explosive plays and the least amount of mistakes, that will matter. But history with the ball being on the 3-yard line, I assure you that if it's a pass, it won't be an inside pass. It'll be trying to throw Jackson Smith and Jigma on a fade in the corner or something like that. But you better be sure that Kenneth Walker or one of the Patriots running back will be running the ball in 2 or 3 times before they decide to throw the ball.
Yeah, and what a great playoffs he had, when we lose Charbonnet. Oh, my gosh, and they would take him out. It was almost like the Barry Sanders situation years ago when Wayne Fontes would say, no, I'm going to put Derek Moore in every time we're inside the 5-yard line because Barry's a little bit too small. And Barry would have had 100 more touchdowns if he had been able to stay in the ball game. But, Walker's done great. Speaking of that, let's look at some of the numbers, if you don't mind me doing so, guys. Seattle offensively in the passing attack, they're 8th in the league. They average 228 yards right there. They're 10th in rushing at 123 yards. Total offense in terms of points, they were 3rd in the league with 28.4, 1st in the league in defense, 17.2. Joey, really quick, I know you said all year long defense travels, defense gets off the bus first. Is there any reason that the Seattle defense won't be flexing, salivating, kind of licking blood off of their lips as they get ready to go out there for the first couple of plays?
No, I think they're going to test out the I'm going to call it the fortitude of the Patriots offensive line. They're going to do that quickly. They're going to try to get Drake May off the spot. They're going to test out his right shoulder to see if he can handle a hit and maybe even a shot or two after the whistle that may come with a penalty.
At the echo of the whistle, they're
going to play to the echo of the whistle. But we're going to see we're going to know pretty quickly where Drake May is from an injury standpoint, because we're going to test him. Okay, he knows he's going to get tested. He's going to get tested. His wife knows he's going to get tested. Everybody knows he's going to get tested. If I'm we're going to test that where he is. But to go back to your question, I think it's important that the team that wins the line of scrimmage will have the best chance of winning the game.
Hey, Joey, real quick, you mentioned everybody, include Grandmama, is going to know this. What about the referees? Talk about, if the echo of the whistle and they take the game away from the players by starting to throw too many flags. Is that something that is discussed with the network, with the media, and with the league itself before the game? They have to be meeting about that in one way, shape, or form.
Well, supposedly the best officials of the year are at this game, okay? And the officials do not want to be the topic of conversation in the Super Bowl. So they will let them play. They will give them leeway to do certain things. If it's obvious, they're going to make the call, but they will let them play as much as possible. From an example, so like if there's the receiver and the DB, they're competing down the field, there's a lot of hand contact, they're probably going to let it go if they don't feel like anybody got in it. Disadvantage, although technically you're not supposed to have your hands on them after 5 yards down the field.
I know.
But my guess is they've let it play out during the year. They're going to let it play out in the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to call things to control the tide and the flow of the football game.
Joey, as a former player, and I've been there too, if you're not, remember there was a rule, probably 20 years ago about whether or not it's a catch, and it took 20 years for them to figure out what a catch was in the National Football League. I don't know what pass interference is anymore because I see the ball and it's not yet at the receiver, but there's hands and there's intertangling and there's all the things that you would say that's got to be pass interference, and there's no flag. It's transferred down into the college game in ways that I just am amazed. Am I the only one that thinks outside the box with that call in particular?
No, you aren't. But herein lies the problem. If it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And what I mean by that is you have let the players get away with this for so long because you don't want to be in a game where you are consistently throwing flags. So now to go back and kind of take that over again, calling that more strictly, I think that's going to be difficult for the officials to do, and I think it takes away from the competitive nature of a defensive back making plays. And as a receiver, if it's there, I want to call. But there are ways to force the officials' hands into making calls, and I don't think they're taught that in some instances. So it makes it difficult. But I think there's always going to be the officials are going to let the defensive backs and the receivers play. If it's not obvious, which a lot of times it is obvious, and they don't call it. But if it's not obvious and restrictive, if it's just hand contacts and people fighting for balls, I think they're going to let that go. But I think if it becomes restrictive, that's when the call will be made.
Yeah, well, that call, and then again, will it be roughing the quarterback? Because I'm assuming that you're exactly right. And then the defense, whether it's an end, a tackle, an outside linebacker, a safety, or a corner that comes in on a blitz, they are going to want to hit Drake May. They're going to do some things. Brian, thank you for your patience. Before I get to you, I mentioned the statistics from the Seattle Seahawks side. Let me look at New England's number, and this is pretty astounding for me. I didn't realize the first time I saw that. I go, what? New England is where with passing? They're fourth in the league at 250 yards. Yep. Rushing, this is the worst category that they're at in rushing, is sixth in the league at 128, which is actually higher than where Seattle is. Scoring, they're second in the league at 28.8. And then defense, guess what? They're number 4 at 18.7 versus 17.2 from Seattle. They're top 6 in every category in the league. And that's why they've won 14 games, and that's why they're playing in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think when you come into games like this, usually there's like an obvious discrepancy, right? There's something that we can kind of pick on, or there's something we can take advantage of when you look at the other team, right? Whether it's their secondary or their front seven or the quarterback play, whatever it is. I think one of the reasons why so many people are so high on Seattle, and they're favored in this game, I think by 4.5 points, is simply because both these teams are very evenly matched if you look at the numbers, right? They're both very, very good at everything. They both run the ball well. They both throw the ball well. They both play exceptional defense. They're both really good in the red zone, too. The red zone scoring is very, very good. So, I think the advantage is I would say Seattle's a little bit more talented, but these teams are very evenly matched. The Patriots coming in here, I don't think it's like an underdog heavyweight fight in any capacity. I think this is a very good Patriots team. They do everything very, very well. I don't know if Drake May's MVP of the league. We'll find out later this week, but worst case scenario, I think he finishes second to Matthew Stafford. There's a reason for that. He's played very, very well all year. This offense has been clicking because of him. It's the main reason why they're playing on Super Bowl Sunday right now. It's just, there's not a lot in New England's game. There's not a lot in Seattle's game that you look at and say they don't do that exceptionally well. Even the special teams aspect of it. I think there's a slight advantage for Seattle, but the Patriots have been pretty good on special teams this year as well. Yeah.
Let's do one more thing, if you don't mind. Let's just talk a little bit about the weather. It should be in the upper 60s, which isn't, it's a great day for most places, especially the rest of the country. Joey, I don't know if you had a wind chill of below 0. We were at 0 here in Atlanta just a couple of days ago. But 67 in Santa Clara is a very comfortable place to be at this time of the year. And they're going to be playing on grass, neutral field, everything like that. I don't give either team a distinct advantage. I think that'll be, a toss-up. Is there anything else you can think of, another intangible that would come into play, at least for one team or the other?
Only from the fact, the only, again, I'll reiterate this. The only thing that I feel like might be an advantage for Seattle is they're familiar with the environment.
Yep.
Okay. They play in that stadium once a year anyway, because it's a division stadium. So a sense of normalcy of where they practice, a routine that they can go through. They know these things already. So if there's anything other than the fact that I think they're a more mature team because they're an older team, the Patriots are a younger football team in a lot of areas. I think that might be the only advantage outside of the physicality in which I think the Seahawks play with.
Yeah, and then the weather, if they were playing home games, Seattle's crowd, it's not the same chill, Brian, that you would have in New England. New England, it would bite you. It'd be 22 degrees and the wind's blowing there, and you're going, my body is shutting down. It's so cold. Seahawks, it's a little bit, it's uncomfortable, and then it's so stinking loud. It's just an amazing place to play. Going into a neutral site, you're going to have a few fans, maybe four to 10,000. I think will be genuine fans. Everybody else is going to be somebody corporate, or they'll be family and friends of the team, or league guests. A lot of that. Any advantage in terms of the crowd and the audience? It should be pretty close to 50-50.
Well, I mean, just from the travel aspect of it, I mean, it's an easier flight for the Seattle faithful as it is for the New England faithful. I know the Patriots fans have had a couple extra years to save up for Super Bowl tickets, which is something they didn't have for a while. It was burning holes in the wallet every season. But
yeah, but they were on bad credit anyways. They'd spent all their money for 20 years. They
cash in the Dunkin' Donuts rewards early, right? What the heck,
pocket.
Whatever we got to do to get there to celebrate and be there for Tom, right? But it's I think I think more so. I think the younger, like Joey's, the younger guys are probably going to be more influenced by the crowd. It's going to be nothing crazy. I mean, whenever a big play happens, it's going to be loud, right? It's not going to be necessarily overly tilted towards one side or the other. I just think it's a little easier travel for the Seattle faithful, but there might be a little extra oomph to it too, because if you're a Seattle fan and you get to say, hey, we won the thing in Santa Clara against the team that we hate, right? That we do not like those 49ers, and we got to go win a Super Bowl and we got to celebrate on their home turf. I think there might be a little extra advantage there, but other than that, I don't think anything, crazy is going to come from the crowd or the noise or the location of the advantage. I think the weather probably plays well for both sides, because New England's really used to the cold and Seattle's used to the windiness, the nasty rain, whatever it might be. But, I think that I hope it's good weather, because I think both these teams have the capability of kind of opening up and spraying the field a little bit. And I think it'll make for a better product and a better game if that happens.
I have to admit, one of the great billboards of all time was right after the Boston Red Sox had beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. This is about 7 years ago. And then the Patriots were playing the LA Rams, Sean McVay's first Super Bowl, just 3 months later.
87 days or something like that.
The billboard in Boston said, "Hey, LA, it's been 87 days since our last championship against you."
Yeah.
And I thought that whoever paid for that, are you kidding me? Being at the right place at the right time. And then that was probably the most boring Super Bowl ever played. What was 10-3 was the final.
Yeah. Right.
But my goodness, as Patriot fans know how to dig it in when you're bleeding and not feeling very good, and they know exactly how to pour the right amount of salt in just the right spot to affect your wound if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Joey, give me some final thoughts here about this. It should be a fantastic game. If you're neutral like I am in Switzerland, just wanting to watch a good game, I have plenty to look at, don't I? Or do I have to say that there's a Super Bowl food, beverage? I'm sure for you, there's a special Super Bowl cigar that you'll be smoking. Give me a little bit of what your ritual is on a normal Super Bowl Sunday.
Well, cigars are always involved. Let's
yes,
not kid
yes,
let's start there. But if I'm watching the game, I want to watch this. I want to see who comes out jittery, who makes the least amount of mistakes. I think that team will start with an advantage. And once the team settled down, we've seen a lot of games this year where one team stays in the game through the first half. In the second half, they come out and they blow the other team out because they started slow and they finished strong. And again, it's not how you start the game, it's how you finish it. You can't win the game in the first quarter, but you can lose it in the first quarter.
You can lose it. Yes, you can. I'm with you.
That's right. So, but just imagine this. There are three guys on Seattle that I'm going to focus on because they have something to play for. You have Leonard Williams, who was a cast off from the Jets and goes to Seattle.
Did he get a mulligan? Did he get a mulligan in Seattle to play for the Jets?
He got a mulligan. Then he went to the Giants, and now he's with Seattle. Okay, so he
mulligan there.
Gets to do that. You have Dexter Lawrence, who was a Cowboy for 11 years, never sniffed it. Now he's got a chance to win a Super Bowl while the Cowboys are sitting at home. And obviously you have Sam Darnold, who this is his 5th team. He could be the first quarterback to play with 5 teams, to be on his 5th team and win the Super Bowl. So I think those 3 guys at least on the Seahawks team, they really have something to play for. They have extra motivation to go out and do something special this game.
All right, Brian, I'm going to ask a football question second, but the first one is, what's your Super Bowl? Should I tell everybody about your Pay That Man with Devontae Freeman? It
was Tevin Coleman. No, don't get that right. It was Tevin Coleman. I was Team Tevin. I was Pay Tevin Coleman. Absolutely.
Devontae Freeman got a touchdown as we're watching the game in the far right corner on the Patriots sideline, and that was 21-0. And Joey, I'm just going to say, Brian may have said, "Pay that man, give him what he wants," when he scored that touchdown. Because
I said that the whole first half, halfway through the third quarter. That's when all that stopped. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of that because obviously, you have a lot of turnover, right? I don't think Seattle has a ton of big names moving in and out, but Joey mentioned Dexter Lawrence. I mean, his exactly what he said when he left was, I left Dallas because I didn't think we could win a Super Bowl there. Now he's here, right? So great for him, and that's awesome, the opportunity, whatever it presents. But now you got to go win the thing, right? If you're going to talk like that and say, hey, I wanted a chance to win, you got to go do it. To be fair to him, though, he's done everything in his power to get him to this point. He's had a great year. That front four's had a great year. You got a lot of former Jets. You got a lot of former Giants, a lot of mulligan guys, right? A lot of guys that had to maybe a fresh start, a chance to get here. But, man, I think I'm excited for this game because I'm not really in a position where I think there's any team that you have a specific interest. I'd love to see these guys win more so. I think Sam Darnold's a great story, but Drake May has a chance to kind of move into the face of the league conversation. If he plays a good game and he gets MVP and they win, and he can look at Josh Allen and say, hey, you haven't done that, right? He can look at like Lamar Jackson and say, hey, you haven't done that. Justin Herbert, you haven't done that. A lot of these guys that are kind of above him in the kind of the quarterback echelon right now, especially, I don't know if he'll win it, but if he can get the MVP of the league as well, I think the tides are turning in New England. Obviously they had a whole, 4 years where they were bad, and, it's about time they're back in relevancy at the Super Bowl, but just a chance to kind of keep on the tradition there. And I think this kid's got a lot of talent. I think he's very, very good. And I think Sam Darnold as well. I think he can come out and say, hey, I was kind of written off by multiple teams, right? Let's not forget Carolina too, right? Carolina wrote him off as well.
Yeah, and you look at where did he go? Where did he go first?
The New York Football Jets.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he gets the mulligan. He had to spend some time there, right?
Listen, he gets a couple. He's had a plethora of mulligans, right? It's just the situations that he's been around. But credit to him, he's kept working. He's kept his nose to the grindstone, and I don't think he ever lost faith in himself. And I think that's why he's playing on Super Bowl Sunday with this Seattle team. And kudos to them, right? Because they said, the Vikings were real quick to say, we got McCarthy. We think we got a better chance to win with him and go further with him. And Seattle looked at him and said, hey, we think this kid can win us a lot of football games. And it worked out. And that's why they're playing on Super Bowl Sunday.
Well, if I could just say one thing right quick, I think the premise of we can play with anybody probably cost the Vikings GM his job this week. So that appeared not to be the case. It appears that that decision was not a universal decision throughout the building, according to published reports. And ultimately, that, along with other things in the past, I'll put it that way, cost the GM his job, which, for a turnover, it's kind of late in the football year for that turnover to happen. If the GM is going to move on, that usually happens later. But obviously, that was a decision that not everybody in the building agreed with, and a lot of people paid for that.
Well, a dear friend of mine, Ron Warren, who is a Minnesota Viking diehard fan, is probably just going, "Oh my gosh, we had him. We could have. We were a bad half, a pick or two, but he got better, and we sure didn't." So Sam has that legacy from all the previous cities that he's been in. Real quick thought while you were talking about quarterbacks and legacies, Brian. In terms of Drake May going, hey, guess who got one? Well, let's talk about the guys that got two. For example, Eli Manning. No one put Eli in the status of I'm an elite quarterback until 2 victories against New England. I thought that was a pretty interesting phenomenon. And I've seen Tracy Morgan, the comedian comedian who's with Saturday Night Live for all those years. He was a guest on the Manning Show, and he sits down and he's just in awe. And he goes, "That's my man right there. That's my quarterback. Eli right there. You are my man." And for every Giant fan to get to say that, for every Raider fan to say 2 times, "Jim Plunkett, you're my man. You are my man," and have anybody in New England say, "Drake May is my man," or in Seattle, or a Seahawk fan that gets to go, "Sam Darnold is my man." That's a really cool thing for any fan to see. Joey, you got any other instances of guys that you've been around that you got they want it? They're gonna have a statue. Drew Brees. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And the Drew Brees commercial that they did after the Super Bowl, fantastic. The way I think it was American Express did something with him, unbelievable. What a difference maker it can make in your life.
I mean, you've had a multitude of guys that have won 2, or I mean, from Patrick Mahomes, he's won 3, and you have Terry Bradshaw. Those guys. I mean, we're going back, obviously, the Montanas of the world, the Steve Young of the world. I mean, Steve Young, famously brushed the monkey off his shoulder, as he's winning the Super Bowl back in the day. So it's amazing. That's the Super Bowl is where legacies are built. That's everybody can be a good player. Excuse me, not everybody, but you have good players, you have all-star players, and then you have legacy players. And legacy players are made in the big moments, Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So, guess what? This is a time for somebody to, especially a young guy, to start to cement his legacy.
Yep. Joe Namath, Steve Young, Terry Bradshaw, countless others.
You have guys like
David
Joe
Tyree.
Namath. Yeah,
David
you have
Tyree.
guys like Joe Namath, and from a quarterback perspective, and maybe Eli, I haven't checked, who in their career, Joe Namath has more interceptions than he has touchdowns. And I'm not sure Eli is not in the same category. But, once they got on that big stage, they were able to perform well on that big stage, which is where that legacy was created.
Yep, your legend is grown there. Also, isn't it good, both of you? I'll ask you first, Brian, that since Peyton's done, we're going to only see fewer commercials throughout the rest of the time, that he won't be in every single commercial that we have. Love Peyton. Great what he did for the game, but there are times where I go, "Please don't be Phil Collins." And every time I turn on the radio, I've got to listen to you in 1986. I want to hear somebody else.
Well, I mean, he's busy with the Manning cast now every Monday, so he's got other stuff going on. I think he and Eli still coach the Pro Bowl games too, but he had some good commercials. I almost wish though that we would have had an Eli versus Peyton Super Bowl, right? Because you remember how crazy it was for the Kelsey brothers when they were playing. Imagine Peyton and Eli going head to head, and we would have seen him, and we would have seen Cooper. We would have seen probably 2 or 3 commercials of Cooper in there. I mean, it would have been Arch would have been in there. I mean, we'd had everybody all over if we got the Manning Bowl, a true Manning Bowl. Tom Brady robbed us of a Manning Bowl.
They played a regular season game a few years ago, and it was bonkers the way that the media went all over that. And they're asking Peyton, "Peyton, what do you think about the way Eli?" He goes, "Go ask him. I lost a game. I don't want to talk about it."
Yeah. Well, for a while, remember Eli had 2 and Peyton only had 1 for a while there. So Eli was hey man, you got all the records over. I got 2 Super Bowl rings. So that was the I'm sure that was the Thanksgiving dinner conversation every single year.
Yeah, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, and then for the backyard basketball game that they have in the summer. Yeah. Eli has bragging rights on all of them. And Archie's sitting there going, I didn't get any. I'm just dad. He
had a mulligan though. He was in New Orleans with the bags on their heads. He was.
Joey, do you get a bigger mulligan
on a terrible team?
Joey, do you get a bigger mulligan for being an Ain't fan with the bag on your head, or do you get a bigger mulligan for being a Jets fan?
The biggest mulligan I think will have to be the Buccaneer fans when they went through like 20 something games or
like 2
without
years
a win.
Yeah.
And then it would be you probably got to go with the bags and then the Jets.
Yeah.
26 games without a win to start your franchise, and there were 40,000 people that met them at the airport when they got their first win in week 13 of a 14-game season. Meeting them at the airport when they went 2-12 that following year. 2 years later, they're playing in an NFC championship. So what a difference a day makes there if you're a Tampa Bay. But they get the biggest mulligan, Joey. That's final, right?
Yes.
Okay. You don't need to phone a friend or ask the audience?
Hey, you had people refusing to go there. I mean, Steve Young refused to go there. I mean,
and they had to do it in the
there.
creamsicles too. They had to do it in the creamsicle jerseys too. You're losing every week, and you're losing.
I played in those creamsicle jerseys when I was a Buck.
There you go.
That was great.
Nothing rhymes with orange, and very few things look good in orange. I'm sorry. You know, the Broncos are a difference, but yeah, that was the worst of the worst. All right, final thoughts, Joey. Before we go, we got a 60-year anniversary of a game that everybody is going to be, even if you're not a fan of football, you'll go to the party because you just want to hang out with everybody else. And at one point or another, you go, who's playing? Tell me about something. What's a nugget that some fan who doesn't know much about football can take from Joey Clinkscales and Brian LeBel to say, you know what? I know a little bit more about this specific game because Joey said so.
I think this game will be determined not only by turnovers, but I think it's going to be decided by a play on special teams. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it could be Seattle special team guy. It could be Seattle or the Patriots going down and causing a turnover on special teams. But I think or a block kick. But I think special team will play a big role in this game. I expect it to be a pretty physical football game. I really do. I think these teams have rested up, and both teams were pretty physical anyway. So I think that will be a factor. But I think the team that has the most explosive plays during the game will actually win this game. And fans, when I say explosive plays, I mean plays over 15, 16 yards. That's what I'll call an explosive play. So I think the team that has the most explosive plays will probably win this football game.
Brian, same question to you. Is there something that you would give in terms of advice to a average fan or somebody who doesn't really know much about the game to say, if you know this, you can be the topic of the conversation for the next 10 minutes right before kickoff?
I'd say I don't think either of these quarterbacks gets MVP of the game. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think both defenses are very, very good. I don't think there's going to be a scenario where either defense lets either of these quarterbacks come out and play a good enough. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a pick six, like Joey said, a special teams play or a big play or something like that. If there's not a DB or a linebacker or somebody that maybe sneaks the MVP away because he makes a huge play, one of the few touchdowns that ends up flipping the game for their team.
Yep, makes perfect sense. All right, folks, my advice to you, if you're going to the game, is just go. Both teams won 14 games. They lost 3. They're identical in terms of their record. They're so close in so many different categories. They each played in NFC championships. The Patriots played on the road, and they went in Denver. By the way, Denver didn't have their starting quarterback, but they still ended up getting there the hard way. They'd earned byes. Seattle has the number 1 defense in the league. New England has number 4. Seattle has the number 3 offense in the league, and New England has number 2. There are so many areas where they're close and where you could just say you're going to flip a coin to see who's going to win, that it should be a very close and exciting game. It may even go to overtime. And then once the game starts, nobody's going to listen to you anymore anyway. So it's going to be like that. All right, final thoughts, Joey.
Well, I do want to say this. I want to wish a speedy recovery, and I'm glad to see Terrell Williams will be at the game. I work with Terrell with the Raiders. He was our defensive line coach. He was he is the defensive coordinator for the Patriots, who was diagnosed with cancer back in training camp, and he is rumored to be cancer-free. He'll be at the Super Bowl watching his team play. I'm sure he won't call the plays or be on the sideline this year, but I'm happy to see that he's back healthy because he's a really good man, and cancer has affected a lot of people, and I'm happy that he'll be back to watch the team that he was expected to be the defense coordinator of this year play in the Super Bowl. So I'm happy for him.
Thank you, especially for reminding us of all that, in terms of things that are important in lives. God's blessings to him, and may he have a speedy recovery and a complete and full one at the same time. Brian, final thoughts from you.
No, absolutely. Just it's going to be hard to follow that up, Joey, but it's hopefully we have a great game. It's good that he's going to be there, and I hope everybody that kind of take it in, right? Especially for these younger guys, kind of enjoy the experience, right? There's a lot of stress, there's a lot of stuff. Obviously, you don't want to lose, but just kind of enjoy the experience, the surrealness of it, and it's the biggest stage in North American sports. So it's the Super Bowl. all eyes are on it for a reason. And, hopefully great game. And hopefully everybody there can just kind of enjoy the experience and everything that comes with it.
9 of the top 10 shows on television in the United States over the past 50 years are Super Bowls. And isn't it interesting? The one from years ago that was in there that had nothing to do with sports or the game itself was Who Shot JR? If you were a Dallas fan way back in the late 70s or early 80s. That's obviously changed since then, but still, it's a big thing. So if you're watching with 100 people, if you're watching with just a small group, your family, or if you're by yourself, if you enjoy the game, know a little bit more about it because of the show. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. If you do like the show, we'd greatly appreciate it. So for Joey Clinkscales, for Brian LeBel, I'm Harper LeBel saying thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. In 100 Yards of Football, this is the NFL Preview Show for Super Bowl 60. We appreciate you being a part of the show. Thank you so very much for tuning in.